I've got two screens working here. Welcome, everybody. It's waiting. It's catching up on my other screen. Welcome. Hello. Welcome to Work Culture Revolution. I am Wendy Conrad, your host, work culture strategist, and founder of Your Happy Workplace. And today we have the change maker, Phoenix, rainbow creator, inspiration for many things here at Your Happy Workplace, the incredible RKA, Rachael Kay Albers. She is a creative director, celebrity, business comedian, a very good one at that, brand strategist gone wild. She writes and performs about branding, pop culture, tech, identity. When she's not muckraking about marketing, she runs RKA Inc., a reinvention studio and branding agency for businesses that burn the rule book. We like that here. She's also on Instagram a lot, which is where we kind of became friendly and got to know each other a little bit. Welcome, RKA. Insert applause here.
I had to wear my sunglasses to be worthy of that intro, right? And honestly, they're doing me a lot of favors today. But I'll take them off for you. Only for you, Wendy.
Oh, that's some Lady Gaga vibes with Barbara Walters. Remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yes. I don't actually. I know how to yes and. That's part of my vibe. And that's what we're doing here today.
Yes, welcome. So excited to have you here. Let me just set us up with my first question, and then I'm going to unleash the fire that is about to come forth from our collective brains.
Unleash the beast. Unleash it.
Today we are muckraking corporate America, touching on some of the history that brought us to what our workplaces of today look like. And then we'll talk a little bit about how we might move forward. So I love what you're doing on your Instagram. And if you're not following Rachael Kay Albers on Instagram, you should be. What are you even doing with your life? And also with your marketing muckraking account and the history lessons and outlining in a very entertaining way, kind of a timeline of all the bullshit things that have happened in history that have led us up to today. And there is so much overlap between those marketing topics that you discuss and the topics that I like to talk about, workplaces, corporate America, etc., etc. So I'm next level excited to have you here to kind of kick this all off. So the first question is a biggie. Buckle up.
Let's go.
How would you define capitalism? Is it the supervillain in this kind of comic strip that is our reality?
Well, I'm not an economic scientist. I'm just a lowly muckraker. But, capitalism really is the extraction of labor and resources for profit, right? I see capitalism as finding a way to exchange something of value for more than it's actually worth, right? And building profit that way. Isn't that what, Isn't that it? So whether it's extracting the labor of workers and taking their labor and taking their production and then reselling it on the market, on the free market, for more than the labor itself was charged by the worker, or taking natural resources and reselling them and moving those things around. And ultimately, it's about profit first. It's about whatever will generate the most profit, not what's actually going to nourish the planet. That's my understanding of capital. I'm sure like a strident capitalist will be like, wait a minute, they wag their finger in my face and they'd be like, actually, it's about freedom. Oh, look, you got a finger. I got 10 fingers, and you know what? I'm going to sell them. I'm going to resell them. No, I'm not. Actually, never mind. But yeah, that's my understanding of capitalism. Did I get it? I'm going to go Google it and be like, let's see.
Well, the definition is subjective, just like you say. I'm sure some people come in and will go, well, really, it's this. And I've seen people talk about, well, capitalism isn't the problem. It's toxic capitalism that's the problem. It's the perversion that we've done to it. So there's so many nuances and grays there. So
Okay, Google tells me,
yes, let me hear.
dictionary.com, it says an economic and political system in which a country's trade and industry are controlled by private owners for profit rather than by the state. And so I think the one thing I missed in my definition was the idea of individual private ownership, right? I mean, I was implied in there because like so much of capitalism and the strident like capitalist enthusiasts are all about individualism and like free enterprise and the entrepreneur who's solving problems instead of having to go through corporate state bureaucracy, and the idea that all of us can own and have this opportunity to create our own destinies through our bright ideas, and like that theoretically there's a even playing field for us all to do it. And when people talk about toxic capitalism, they are implying that, well, first of all, they believe in meritocracy. They believe that there was a time in which we participated, that capitalism like started out and we were all like running a race and we got the same, the gun went off and we all started running and whoever ran fastest won, and that's just the deal. And so they believe in that. They believe in the idea that hard work begets fruits, right? And they ignore the realities that our entire history, when I talk about history, there was never an even playing field. How did the people who colonized the United States of America get the wealth to even do that, right? And also the wealth of the United States of America was created, you want to talk about labor that wasn't even compensated, through slavery, indentured servitude, and just like genocide and colonization, just stealing things from other people and be like, now this is mine and I'm going to sell it. Like, so when people talk about toxic capitalism, it's like they believe it. They believe in making America great again. They believe that we can return to something that never really existed to begin with. That's my big problem. And now there's no going back, right? Right? Like there's no, how would we possibly even the playing field? Like literally, how could we ever do that? It's impossible. So that's my bite back at you. All those happy capitalists in the comments who are like, wait a minute, ladies, let me tell you one thing about this.
I love that. And I agree. The more I kind of dig into the history of things and the origin of things, the more I'm like, oh, it's like, okay, I see what you did there. So how has your kind of research and curiosity and learning about our systems and the history of them affected how you view your business and your industry?
Oh, Wendy, what a loaded question. Speaking of firing the gun, here you go. Pow, pow, pow. It's interesting because, okay, so I'm in marketing and branding and advertising. And speaking of studying the history, a lot of the historical study that I've done has led me to see how, I've looked at the roots of this industry itself, and advertising really, you talk about our work overlapping. Advertising was and is capitalism's fuel. We wouldn't have a capitalist consumer culture if it weren't for advertising, and advertising and corporate culture really go hand in hand. But when you look at the early advertisers, and even you come to the future and you come to now, there is a historical kind of pattern of some of the great big names in advertising getting to a point in their career and being like, oh my God, what have I done? Like the guy who created the Nielsen ratings, the rating system that shows us like who's watching what shows on TV and when, right? Some of the early copywriters, and then all the way to the guy who created the Facebook like button, got to a point of being like, oh my gosh, I've created a monster. And so I went through that experience myself, kind of, where I got to a point in my career where I was like, what am I doing? And I had a little bit of a breakdown around it. I was like, what am I doing? What am I contributing to? I think I had kind of deluded myself into believing that because I work with small businesses that I was like above capital. I was like, no, but I'm helping the little guy. And in many ways I am. And there is that nuance there. Like I am helping individuals to kind of get free of corporate rule in their own way. But then a lot of like the online marketing systems are essentially taking people who want to get free from corporate, start your own thing, and then let me teach you how to be like a little mini capitalist overlord of your own. Like you're not doing it like you're like Bezos, but you're becoming your own little mini Bezos. And that's some of the marketing and the branding things that I had absorbed like osmosis through my industry. I was realizing that I was replicating that. So I got to like, you know, I had a breakdown. I burned it all down. I was like, never, you know, not no more. And I'm still in that space of, I do believe that if you want that one big place where people can change the world is in marketing. Like you want to start planting the seeds for a better future, because we're not going to like capitalism our way out of capitalism, but recruiting more conscious, ethical people into marketing and advertising to be in the rooms where the big messages that shape our cultural psyche are being made, to be in those rooms where it happens, to say, how can we do things differently? It's kind of an uphill battle if you're working in corporate. That's the thing. That's why I don't. But so now I'm walking that tightrope between how do I live my values and still, you know, make a living. Some people were like, I got this feedback earlier this year that was like, well, if marketing feels unethical to you, then maybe it's time to find another job. And I'm like, okay, but what am I going to do, right? Because like then I got to go. What am I going to go back to school? How am I going to do? I'm going to get 100 grand of loans, start a new career. And I'm sorry, but there isn't an industry that is untouched by capitalism. So what? I can go into education and learn and get sucked into that bureaucratical, like capitalism infused shit show. I could go into, what am I going to go into that is not struggling within the system? That's a privilege. It's a privilege to change jobs just because the industry that you're in doesn't align with your ethics and values, right? So walking that tightrope, Wens.
You must be in my brain, because you just segued us into my next topic here. And I want to do a little room reset, because I see we've got a couple live watchers here. So if you're watching us live, just pop in the chat where you're watching from. If you have any questions for Rachael Kay Albers, let us know. But I love that I read that email newsletter that you told the story about, you know, if you don't like it, you should just leave. And which has so much overlap with workplaces. You know, I have personal experience and talk to a lot of people who've been told, you know, you should just feel lucky to have a job right now. And you know, versions of that.
Right.
And you ask the very impactful question, well, what happens when all the critics leave? And this can be related to social media, to our industry, to workplaces, to politics. You know, people say, if you don't like America, then just leave. You know, and people tell me, well, why do you live in Florida? You know, and that's a whole nother show, which are all versions of, if you don't like it, leave.
Which is also funny, because those same people who say, if you don't like it, leave, don't want immigrants coming to this country, right? They're the same ones who are like, don't come here. So it's like, okay, so you want us to emigrate out, but you don't want anyone to immigrate in. Okay, I see you.
Yeah. And like you said, when somebody says, well, if you don't like this industry, just leave. You know, if all the workplaces are creating harmful environments for us to work in, where do the people who value their experience on this planet go to make a living? You know, and that's a rhetorical question, but would love for you to expand on that, because
that's a rhetorical question that I'd love for you to answer.
Yeah.
Well, they go
answer the question. You have all the answers.
I'll tell you what, they go cry themselves to sleep. They, you know, go take a bath and sob. All right. And just 1 minute at a time, just one teardrop at a time. And, you know, hope it works out for the best. Yeah, that's the thing, is that, you know, I had kind of a storied history of my own, like leading up to going into marketing. I had gone to theater school and I studied marketing as like my backup. I did a double major. And so, I backed it right up, didn't I? But I went to theater school, and as I got out of theater school and I learned what the reality of the industry is, you want to talk about capitalism and, oh my God, and monetizing yourself and like becoming the product and all of that. And I started to see what it looked like to be an actual working actor, and how little time you have for yourself. You essentially have to fund your own art in most cases. Like it's the dream of like making it in Hollywood or New York and Broadway is a 1% or less type of experience. So I came out of theater school. I was like, nope, this isn't the industry for me. I love the arts, but becoming a working actor is not my lifestyle. And then decided, okay, wait, I'm going to go to law school. I'm going to make change. Well, I'll admit my initial goal of law school was like, that's a job where I can use my brain and I will have enough money to live well. And then along the journey to law school, I was like, no, I'm going to help the people. I'm going to do the things. I'm going to work for, justice. And I went to law school and I learned very early on about, like, I remember being in an international law class and learning about the UN and what the UN can do. Like, we were reading all of these cases about the Sudan and the way that they're violating their own people's human rights. And every 4 years, the UN goes in and is like, hey guys, you know what? We're not doing nice things to people. So can you maybe think about that? And they're like, yeah, sure, we'll do that. 4 years pass and they come back again. Nothing has changed. And the UN's like, all right, hey guys, I thought we talked about this. And so I'm studying this. I'm studying international criminal law and things like that. And I'm like, wait a minute. So these giant bodies, they're all, it's all political theater. They don't do, I mean, I'm not going to say that the UN does nothing, but it doesn't have actual enforcement power the way that I think that many people believe, the way I believe before I went to law school. And my professor was like, yeah, that's kind of the game we're playing here. It's like, we're all kind of just, doing theater for each other, hoping that there are these small ripple effects. And so I was like, well, this ain't the job for me. I'm not doing this. Like, hell no, hell to the no. And then I went into the nonprofit space and started to do work with NGOs and nonprofits and, did a lot of pro bono work that I self-funded. And again, it was the same type of capitalist bureaucratic red tape. So I say all of this, and then I ended up in marketing. I was like, I gave up. Then I was just like, okay, I'll just make brands for people. Who cares, right? And honestly, the truth is, I did start my business to fund my pro bono work, right? I needed a way to do the work that I was doing for free. How do I do that? I'm going to start a business. That was the dream, and I did, and I did that for a while, and it was like, it didn't matter the industry. And I've got friends in academia, and I've got friends in healthcare, and I've got friends in lots of different industries, and they're all coming up against the same types of problems, just in different configurations. And so I realized, like, there is no exit, right? There isn't, as much as the bro marketers of my industry would have you believe, like, okay, you just, sell a potato gun on eBay and then you'll become a bazillionaire. You can go in the hammock and forget the world's problems while everything burns down. There is no exit. There's no other industry. We're all struggling within this. So when I give people career advice, I'm like, find the place that hurts the least, right? Like,
ooh, now that's a tweetable, RKA.
It's a very depressing tweetable. It's not like live your dreams. It's like live the least amount of pain. Oh, I lost my earbud here. I lost the pod. Hold on.
That's like Amy Schumer. Amy Schumer was interviewed recently, and her comment on marriage was, what makes for a successful marriage? And they said, find somebody who can tolerate you.
As somebody who's going through a divorce, I would say, yeah, that's, that's pretty accurate. I think that's sounds about right. So, yeah.
But yeah, I love what you're saying about how it's across the board. You can't escape. There's no exit. Jon Stewart was interviewed, and he said they were talking about capitalism in some way, shape, or form, and he said there's no industry that's not exploitive. It's the model.
Yeah,
it's not
exactly.
It's not the model in any industry. And so that's why I love how you brought up nonprofits, because they have their own unique set of upness.
So it's like, okay, if every industry is suffering and there is no, I think it's depressing, but it's also freeing, because then it's like, okay, I'm not going to find, a lot of people think even with the Great Resignation, they're like, I'm going to leave my job and I'm going to find another job. And then they find another job, and it's maybe better in certain ways and maybe not as better in certain other ways. And it's like, there's that letdown of, you believe that there's some sort of a holy grail, that you're missing something, that something better is out there. And I mean, something better might be out there, but it's less about finding the ideal company or the industry that's unscathed by all this, and more about finding, okay, where what is the place where I can sustainably make change? Because I know that if I had been an attorney, I could have really done some really good work. I was great at it. You know, I'd be a great litigator. I was great at writing written briefs. I was, you know, I have the brain for it. But I knew after work, I worked in an immigration clinic where we did, I worked on a case, and I had my own, and we won this case for this woman. We helped her get her son, who was like on a humanitarian parole. She was, you know, disconnected from her son. We, you know, it was going to be a decade or more before she saw her son again. And we got him over to the United States, and it was a big win, and it was amazing. And I'm so glad that I did it. And it was so emotionally exhausting. And I was like, I cannot do this for the rest of my life. It will burn me out. I won't be able to make change anymore because I'm stripped of all of my, like, my spirit is, because for every case that you win in those types of circumstances, you're losing 10, and you're watching people's lives get torn apart. And I'm like, this is for a different type of personality than mine, because I'm getting so emotionally, yeah, I had it. And it's like, there are folks out there that this is their strength. So it's like, I found my way into marketing and branding. And as much as I have ethical problems with the entire history of advertising, there are other elements of the job, the creative part, the people part, the part where I get to muckrake, that allow this to be a sustainable job for me, that as much as it wears me down and it depresses me and it distresses me, also I have a lot of pieces of it that lift me up and fill me up and make me feel fulfilled as a person. So that's where I'm like, okay, at least at this juncture in my life, this is where I'm going to be. This is where I'm going to be doing my work to make money. And also I found a way to infuse my activism work into it too. And that is also what makes it sustainable for me. So it's like, where can you make change sustainably in the world? It might not, like, there might be a lot of things that you're good at that you can do, but that like strip your soul down. So that's, I think that's my career advice for all you kids out there watching.
Can I just say that if I were like a lawyer and I'm in the courtroom and I'm stacking my papers and in walks RKA as the opposing counsel, I would be like, oh, I'm fucked.
Oh, I love that fantasy for me.
I'd be like, oh no, it's RKA. I just lost.
Imagine me in like a rainbow suit. Imagine that. That would be the dream.
That's what I visualize. Ooh,
yeah.
that could be an RKA version of a courtroom drama show. I'm seeing.
I haven't done one of those.
So many.
I did have like the law. I had the Law and Order dreams of being like, I object. And like, you know, I was in it just so I could do the dramatic closing argument. That's what I want to do. I want to do a dramatic closing argument. I want to object to things. I want to like be in the bar, like after the being like, yeah, what are we doing about it all? Right. And I realized quickly that's about like 0.01% of what you do as a lawyer. So I'm like, never mind, Mariska Hargitay, you did right by me on TV, but I'm not meant to fill your shoes. So
I can relate to that story because my bachelor's degree is in elementary education. And as soon as I was thrust into that world, I'm like, fuck, no. I went head for the hills. Like, no. That's a whole nother show.
That's another fantasy. I would love to have you, like, I'd love to walk into a classroom with my daughter and see Wendy there with her finger.
Okay,
the road's not taken.
At the heart of business, and I think you would agree, is innovation, change, risk, new ideas, evolution. Well, yes. So why do you think CEOs, leaders, business owners, corporate America at large is resisting this work culture evolution and these changes so hard?
Because what you just said is a lie.
Okay, let's talk about
what you just said is a myth, right? So the myth of capitalism is that it privileges innovation. And to a degree, sure, there is that, but we overblow that. Like, people would be like, capitalism, without capitalism, we wouldn't have all these amazing innovations. I would disagree with that. I would say that there are lots of other systems we could have where we would be innovating within those systems. So much of capitalist history is less about innovation and more about what is the fastest path to profit off of this thing that I have. So one story I love to tell is, okay, you look at the history of Crisco vegetable shortening and the history of Listerine mouthwash. Where that came from was with Crisco specifically, there were these capitalists that had all of this abundance of cottonseed oil. They had this, I don't even know where that comes from. Cottonseed, it comes from cotton. I don't know. I need to go deeper, but they had all this cottonseed oil and they're like, okay, how do we make money out of this? And so they came up with this concept of vegetable shortening, and then they created a whole marketing campaign to convince women specifically at the time. They're like, every housewife needs this, make your chicken a little bit easier. And this wasn't an example of the market said, the people were saying, we need this product in our homes. It was the capitalists saying, we have a thing. How do we create a marketing campaign to make people think they need this? And we sell it as an innovation, but this wasn't answering a problem. Same thing with Listerine. Listerine was an antiseptic that was developed right around the time of the Civil War. They used the early prototype of that on, like to treat wounds on the battlefield. Coming off of the Civil War, Industrial Revolution, we got a lot of Listerine. We can produce it cheaply and quickly. How do we make people think they need it? Listerine was sold as a cure for gonorrhea. It was sold as, I led with that. I should have tucked it in, but it's what I always think about. It was a gonorrhea treatment. It was a floor cleaner. It was an aftershave. It was sold as a dandruff treatment. And then finally, they stumbled upon halitosis. And this is actually where the phrase "always a bridesmaid, never a bride" came from, because the advertisers at Listerine created this whole character, Edna, poor Edna. Why is Edna all alone? She's never, no one wants to marry her. She's just sitting in the, because she's got bad breath. And what's interesting is, again, this wasn't coming out of human people being like, we really need to deal with our bad breath. In fact, like this time in history, a very stinky time. We didn't bathe very often. We didn't wear deodorant. And all of those things were created. Like, I'm sure people were like, there were times where bad breath was a problem, right? But we were used to it. We were used to being around each other's stinky bodies, right? So it was like kind of, it was, and there was like the pheromones and all.
It was hot.
It was kind of sexy. I mean, have you ever been around like a stinky dude or a stinky person and you're like, I kind of like your musk. I enjoy. I had my first boyfriend smelled like a hamburger, and I really liked that about him. I'll never forget. He smelled like he came right off of McDonald's. It was like an oniony type of a situation. Anyway, but okay, so it was less about people who wanted the solution to their stinky problems, and it was more advertisers saying, we've got this thing, we need to sell a lot of it, we need to convince people that they need it, we're going to promote it as an innovation solving human problems. So okay, so that would be like the foundation of my answer to you, is that this concept that capitalism prioritizes innovation first and foremost to solving human need is not exactly true. And so why don't CEOs want to evolve with work culture? Because it doesn't make them enough money, because it's going to cost them money, like period, end of story. It's expensive, right? Whether treating your workers with dignity is expensive, and it isn't an immediate payoff. Some people will be like, well, if you treat your workers with dignity, you'll have this, the ROI on it will be this and that. And it's true. Like, obviously you could make a capitalist case for dignity in the workplace and having it be more profitable for you. And yet it isn't a direct thing of like, first of all, there's no easy path. It's not like, oh, I'm just going to put a taco bar in the break room and now look at our returns are up 10% this quarter, right? So there's no easy solution. It's a long road. It's going to take a lot of constant evolution. So that's expensive, and it's going to be trial and error in there, right? It's not like an immediate payoff. And these things are constantly evolving. It's going to take ongoing work and effort that doesn't have that immediate, like people always want to say, I do X and out pops Y. I do X and out pops some more money for me, right? So that was my answer to why do, corporations, they're going to do it as slowly as possible until it costs them more money than anything else. Like once it starts costing them, we see this mass exodus of people leaving companies. Now companies are like, oh shit, I gotta get some coffee and talk to
Yeah.
We're gonna put a ping pong table in the lounge because people are leaving, but we're too little too late, Brad,
Yeah. And I would also throw in, along with monetary reasons why they're not motivated, is power dynamics. When you're used to sitting in a position of power and then somebody comes up and says, well, why don't we do it like this? here's a better way of doing it, or we want to have this in our work experience. They're like, well, you're entitled and blah, 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 blah. So I pulled these couple sentences from an RKA IG post, which I did specifically for our conversation today. You said companies have not historically taken care of their workers because they care. They do it because workers demanded it. So do you think intention has an effect on outcome? Like for the leader who's just doing it because the team demands it or because it's starting to cost them money, and then the leader who's doing it because she genuinely cares about the team, the action might be the same, but the intention is different. Do you think that makes a difference?
Of course it does. Of course, because people can feel, it goes back to, it's funny. I've been doing all this research on branding and people and what it has to do with us in this age where we're all monetizing, commodifying ourselves and becoming itty bitty personal individualized brands. And I read this book called The Human Brand. And it was all about humans have, from the very early human history, have had kind of like biological evolutionary capacity for judging whether we trust another human being. Back in like the days of like barbarism and savagery, when we were all like, nomads, and we weren't living in civilization yet, we needed this to survive. We needed to know very quickly if we happened upon like another person on the plane that we didn't know, wasn't from our group, if they were going to kill us or not, right? Like if they were a threat or they were friendly, right? And the researchers who studied all of this were able to kind of delineate it down to the two factors that humans are able to kind of almost in a gut way judge whether we trust another human, and it's warmth and competence. Warmth and competence. And so it's like, whether, so if we can tell if somebody's trustworthy, whether like, are they capable of leading us, right? Like, are they competent to do the job? And also, are they doing it for the right reasons? Those are the two, evolutionary ways that we as human beings judge another person's trustworthiness, going all the way back from human history. So when you apply that here, I think that speaks to the warmth part. A CEO or a company might, add in more benefits or more programs or things to make work life better for their employees. But if it's not coming from a place of warmth, if it's only coming from competence and strategy and not from true human connection, people can sniff that out. And I want to add a little asterisk to what I said, because yes, historically, companies have created more friendly work cultures for their employees based on employee demands, unionizing and people kind of rising up and saying enough, like, boycotts and all that stuff. And also historically, some company leaders, some kind of like forward-thinking leaders, did it preemptively as a way of avoiding employee pushback, as a way of, well, gosh, if I can make my workplace feel like a family, well, number one, I can get people to work longer hours. They'll work for less money because they feel like loyalty. They're like, oh, but this is like, because I'm lucky to have a job. And also as a way of preempting things like unionization. So if I give people just enough benefits and I give them enough of a comfortable work environment that they don't see that I could give them more, well, they will never unionize. They will never, they will never demand more. So there was also that kind of historical piece of employee benefits and workday reduction and, all overtime and things like that. There's a historical precedent for people being like, how can I give them just enough that they won't rise up, and also that they won't be talking crap about me in the media, but not so they actually go so far that we have to give them more and that it costs our bottom line. So there's that element of the history as well. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So let's dig a little deeper here into the history aspect of it, because I talked a lot, and I'm pretty sure you've seen it. Also, the documentary, The Century of the Self, and the whole history of PR, the father of PR, they called him. Was his first name Edward?
Bernays.
Edward
Bernays. Sigmund Freud's nephew.
Yeah. And how eye-opening it was for me, and how it's affected how I view my work and how I approach my work. And you said in a live, consumer culture historically was engineered to get us to find our worth and value in what we buy and what we own and what we buy next. And consumerism. I wrote a note after watching the Century of the Self, saying that we've been taught to think about how managing people and teams is the way we've been taught how to do it is kind of at the intersection of consumerism and control, because we've talked about using the resources, human resources. That's why I hate that term. Because this same system that's trained us to be mass consumers also installed like this kind of idea of individualism, which I think bleeds over into how we lead teams and create whatever the workplace vibe is going to be. So how do you think we can start to shift things to actually care about humanity and our neighbors, when only caring about ourselves has been so rewarded in the past? Like, we've been so conditioned to be this way. So what's going to start to move the needle towards something different?
Okay, well, I'm going to answer. You got me there, baby.
That was a lot.
You got me there. I mean, this is definitely my favorite topic, is like the way in which the concept of freedom, and freedom is really like such a big part of the American brand specifically, and how America dealt with mass production, which really then, I mean, mass production is what created corporate America. I mean, it created the need for us to have like buildings full of administrators who are all overseeing the ways that mass production is then, being divvied up in the supply chain and all of that kind of stuff. Freedom was how this was sold to us, right? This concept that we are free to buy, we are free to participate in consumer culture. Like, look at how many options and choices that we have. Now, when we get to like what's going to make the change, I did a post last week, Wendy, where I talked about the 4 types of change makers from my perspective, the people who will change the world. And I see it, there's 4 different ways that people are making change in this world today. One, the compassionate reformers. Those are the ones that are in the companies. They're like working within companies to make them more inclusive, to make them more equitable, to make them more centered around the human experience, right? Those are the folks that are like, I can't wait for the change to happen. I need to make things better right now. Those are the people in politics. Those are the people who are in education, things like that. The second type of change maker is the revolutionary fire starter. That is me. And that person is like looking at what are we burning down next? What is screwed up? What is the problem here? And those folks are less interested in like what happens next. I mean, certainly they've got their ideas, but they're more about like, we need somebody who's taken a torch to everything that's broken, right? And the fire starter, it's hard to be a fire starter if you're working in corporate America, right? Like, you can be, there's a place for that, but it's corporate America is definitely more suited for the compassionate reformer. My sister's in HR, and she just, got her PHR certification. And she has such a heart for going into companies and making them better for the individuals who are working there. She doesn't want to burn stuff down, right? Like, that's like more like me. So then we've got the third type of change maker, the visionary innovator. And that person is the one who's thinking big and bold. They're looking way outside of the box of what we have today. And they're saying, here is what could be possible. Here, let's think way bigger than what capitalism is offering us. I want to imagine a whole, like, they're not letting the sky is their limit in terms of the vision that they have. And the fourth type of change maker is the luminary bridge builder. And they're the ones, they kind of are a combination. I think you might be this type, Wendy. I think you might have the luminary bridge builder in you, because they kind of merge all of these different change making types. And they're all about, like, they see the vision of where we could go. And they also know that, like, they need to kind of take people by the hand and say, I see where you're at today. We're not going to get where we need to be by staying in our place. And so they're gently kind of taking people by the hand and saying, let's go across the bridge to this new world. While the visionary innovators are creating that world, and the fire starters are the one burning shit down so that we have enough space to get to this new way. So all of this is a way of saying, I don't know, Wendy. I can't. I'm the fire starter, Wendy. I don't know. I mean, I have ideas, but first of all, I'm self-employed. I work for myself, right? And I knew that I couldn't work for the man. The man and I do not get along. So I'm not in the corporate grind day in, day out. I've come into companies. I often have the opportunity to come in and see a little window into how a company runs and help them with one particular part of their strategy. And then I'm out. I'm leaving. Because I will admit, like, so, I come in and I've got a vision for folks and I help them with that vision. And the heartbreaking part is like, people can't afford to keep me on long term. And nor do I really want to be. I don't want to be here in the nitty gritty day in, day out with the ping pong table and the freaking Taco Tuesdays. Like, I'm not doing it. It's not for me. It's not my role. But it's hard for them. It's hard for them to sustain the vision that we've created, partially because they are so focused on profits. But I've learned to embrace. I used to have some like resentment for like the reformers. I'd be like, come on, reformers, we need more fire. And it's like, no, we need people working in the system today who are making it more comfortable. Like the water is boiling. We're all frogs in boiling water. It's boiling up. But we need somebody who's building rafts and making sure that we're not all, boiling to death, right? There is a place for them. And there's a place for the big thinkers and that are creating the new solutions. And there's also a place for the folks who are like, I'm not going to, and that is the benefit of being self-employed. I was just talking to somebody today who's like, wants to burn down their own stuff, but they're like, they have to do it really carefully because they have a corporate job. And if their boss sees what they're burning down, they could lose their job. I am self-employed. Now I still have to worry about, having enough of a reputation to gain clients and have their trust in that way. But I don't have like 10 layers of bureaucrats above me watching over my shoulder what I'm doing here with my fire starting. So I have more freedom. That's why I have the privilege of being a fire starter. So that's my answer is I'm just going to keep burning shit down over here, Wendy, and clearing the way. But I think it's making space and honoring. And like, I think a lot of reformers look around and they say, oh no, like you shouldn't be setting fires, RKA, like you need to be reforming like me. And the visionaries are like, hey, no, we can't be just like fixing what's broken. We have to think of something brand new. And the bridge builders are like, oh, we need to be gentle with people. We need to take them across the bridge towards the new way. And it's like, we all need to recognize that each other's work makes each of our, like, we're all working together. And this is my answer, Wendy, is
Yes.
about me. It is about us. I don't freaking know. And neither do you.
Yeah, that's right.
But when we come together, when I bring my fire to your bridge, right? Like I don't want to, I'm burning down another bridge.
That's a song lyric.
Let's go.
Bring my fire to your bridge. Are you flirting with me? Or do we need to get the Listerine out?
That's my Tinder profile. I got that in my Tinder. Oh my God. But yeah, right?
Yeah, I think what you're saying is there is no one answer to that question. Right. We all have our roles to play. And I think when somebody says, if you don't like it, leave, then you just got to go, no, I'm not doing that. Or maybe your change making is in leaving. And I think too. The important part, and this is something that I struggle
burning
with
the bridge
too, is like I would agree with you about the visionary bridge building, but I wish I could be a bridge burner. I mean, a fire. What's the change maker with the burning?
Revolutionary fire starter.
Revolutionary fire starter. Like I look at that in awe. But we all have our roles to play, and
the bridge builder has them all. Don't you know that? The bridge builder has them all. So you do have the fire starter in you, right? Like I feel like the bridge builder is like when you become a little bit more self-actualized, like ultimately we all kind of get to a place where we can be a bridge builder, but we don't start there, right? And there's, some of us just need to be doing the fire. I can see myself evolving into more of a bridge builder. I think we all, we have to. And that's the thing with these types is that there's a place for, we all have all of these inside of us. It's more about figuring out what is my core role. Right now, at this stage in my life, my core role is fire starting, right? I can see a future for myself of bridge building, but I'm not at that place yet. And I also have to learn a lot more before I get there. So I think it's about honoring and embracing where you're at right now. Because I can have a lot of self-judgment for myself where people will be like, why aren't you like making up more visions? Like, where's your solution, RKA? And I can get really hard on myself. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I am doing exactly the role I'm meant to be in right now. So there might be somebody in a reformer role who says, oh yeah, I'm reforming right now. I'm in a company, I'm making it better, but that's not what I really want to do. I really want to be an innovator. I really want to be creating brand new systems of change. And it's like, hey, that is in your future. Embrace the reformer that you are today, knowing that you're building the bridge towards, I mean, we're really going with these analogies, but you're building the bridge for yourself. My sister's in a company right now, and she's working with this in this company. I don't think she sees herself in this company forever. And sometimes she gets really stressed out because she's like, am I doing all the things that I need to do? Because like my real vision is this, but I'm here. And I'm like, you are building the bridge for yourself to be an innovator in the future somewhere else. And that's hard. Like capitalism is all about like, we want results now, right? So I when I came up with these 4 types, which I'm sure I'm not the only one to think of things this way, but it was an inspired moment. It helped me to, one, have more compassion for myself and accept and embrace the role that I'm in today. But also, to be real with you, because I'm judgy. Okay, I can be a judgy bitch. Okay, it helped me to have more compassion and understanding for the other roles around me, because I sometimes look around and say, why aren't you starting more fires? And I'm like, because that's not their strength area. That's not their role. That's not the place that they're in their life right now. They can't, they gotta, pay the bills. They can't start fires or like everything, where are they going to sleep? Things like that. So.
And those are great kind of like avatars to recognize if you're in a leadership position in your work culture, in your team, and assign jobs and tasks accordingly, and to recognize that there's no one right way. And this is something that I'm unlearning in the process of, and will continue to till the day I die, probably. There's no one right way. There's all kinds of gray areas. We all have our own different strengths, our own different ways of communicating. And
it's a rainbow.
Yes. Taste the rainbow. So to shift us back to the historical context, why do you think it's important for us, or maybe you don't, but why do you think it's important for us to make these connections to the history of how we got here, to the past, of what's created kind of the dysfunction of today in order to move forward and create something different? Why do you think that's important?
Well, humans are cyclical people. We have patterns that we repeat and we repeat and repeat. And I think for me, I think up until I was a real patriot, I'll tell you what, until about my senior year of college. Like, as much as I was like always a rebel, I still very much bought into this concept that like America was the land of the free, the home of the brave, and we, the founding fathers, are my daddy, and like we are. I got daddy issues. Can you tell? But I was very into the founding fathers, man. I was like, no. But then I took this class. It was interesting because I went to art school. Okay, so my like prerequisite like science class was like the biology of AIDS, which was a really cool class, and we learned about the marketing campaign to kind of position HIV and AIDS in a certain way historically. And I remember, and like the US's involvement in doing that, and the government's involvement in doing that, and like spreading fear and things like that. And I remember being in that class and being like, no, we would never. We believe in like life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And 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 there was like this radical girl in my class who was like, capitalism sucks. And I was like, whatever. I love Starbucks. And like, I used to brag to people. I'd be like, I am Starbucks' ideal client. Like I am their avatar, and I buy anything they sell me. Like I used to say that to people. LOL. So I had this whole awakening where I started, like, some people directed me. My professor in this class directed me. I, started saying, why don't you look at the history? And it was like, I mean, this was like when I was in high school and I read The People's History of Howard Zinn, or The People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn. And that's when I learned that Columbus was a piece of shit. Can I say shit in this?
Say it.
Piece of shit. I was like, wait a minute, he was like an enslaver and he like killed everybody? Like, wait a minute, Columbus, I thought Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492. That's what I was taught, right? So, we look back on the history of things and we see historical patterns. I think it can be really easy. Well, first of all, we've been taught one version of history through propaganda, that to get us to buy into capitalism and to get us to be little happy workers who just like buy and work and buy and work. And so we've got to look at the history so that we can find the truth. I think it's easy for us to look and say, to feel that the situation that we're in has always been this way. Even as I've been recently researching consumer culture, and I kind of just assumed we always, like, as a people, like to buy stuff to make ourselves feel good. And I'm researching this, I'm like, oh damn, this is only about 100 years old of a concerted effort on the part of advertisers to get us to order our sense of self and our sense of happiness around buying, and what are we buying next? That isn't how it's always. I think people don't want to make change because they say, this is how human beings are. We've always been this way. Now, there are patterns that have repeated themselves, but there are patterns of exploitation. There are patterns of abuse of power. The pattern isn't that historically humans have always like wanted to go to the store and buy choose from between 17 different types of Cheez-Its. You don't have the pattern of being like, treat yourself, take care of yourself by going and like spending $300 on a purse and, you know, drinking mimosas all day. Like, that isn't actually the history of humanity and how we've always been as a people. So I think breaking free from the idea that this is like the capitalism is the only answer, that human beings have always been this way, looking at the history helps us see, like, you know, when I am studying some of these early guys in like the 1920s who were like, what's his name? Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill.
Yeah.
He was like one of these early bro marketers. He's like, yeah, you can just like get rich off your ideas, and like doesn't even matter if they're good. Like, just like convince somebody that you're smart, and like that's what I did, and you can too. And then we're seeing that exact thing replicate itself today. People think that they're getting exposed to these brand new, innovative, cutting edge concepts, and it's like, this is some repurposed garbage from a dude who had like one of the early MLMs. That's Napoleon Hill. He had like a pyramid scheme like back in the day before you even had a name for it. So I think, one, it helps us understand that the way things aren't always the way things have been. It also helps us see the patterns of abuse so that we can detach from these messages that we've gotten to see like, people are really very passionate about buying culture today. They really think it was like their idea. Like, this is how it's always been. And it's like, no, you were brainwashed. And I think seeing that helps people to like be more critical about their decisions, and whether it's in the workplace, whether it's in, you know, their private lives. It all goes back to history, baby.
Yeah, critical thinking, which I think is something that is not exercised a lot these days. You know, asking the questions and being ready to hear what the answers are. And being critical of what's you know, that's what's kind of led me on the path backwards, I guess, to looking about how did we even get to the bullshit that exists today? Like, why is this? And the more I dig, I'm like, oh my god, like, just like you said, like, you know, reading about how I posted the other day on the history of work about how work is supposed to suck is like a meme that started hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago to control our slave population. Well, yeah, work's supposed to suck because God said so. So just, you know, the only escape is death. So just deal. You know, so like, and I'm like,
because God said so.
Yeah,
LOL. Oh my God. That's how they get you. That is literally
and
how they
all
get
of
you.
these ways that we've been manipulated to serve the system and the people who are at the top of that system. So we're coming up on an hour, so I've got 2 questions left that I want to squeeze in and get your thoughts on in your genius. So what characteristics or skills do you think make for an effective
leader? Wow. I am gonna rely on my history. I'm gonna call us back. Warmth and competence, Wendy. Going back to the human brand. I mean, leaders need to be like, and the competence piece, I'm gonna say leaders need to be always learning. It's not about, oh, I'm so smart. I think part of competence in leadership is, you know, speaking of work culture revolution, it's about always evolving, being a student of your field, no matter how high up the chain you are, right? So that's the competence part. I think people think, oh, I'm an expert, I know what I do, I went to school, I have all these credentials. That's not the competence part. It is being a constant student. That's how you stay competent. And the warmth piece is it's about freaking caring about people. I mean, that I feel like is, you know, you got to care. If you don't, and the warmth, it's warmth, I feel like is such a good word because people can sniff out when it's put on. True warmth, true compassion. And if you don't got that, I don't know what to say. You shouldn't be in leadership. If you're a sociopath, get out. Don't be an internet marketer.
That's a tweetable. That's a tweetable right there. If you're a sociopath, get out.
Well, and I
no, I like that.
Sociopaths in the world, and we, you know, they have a place in this world too. But it's like maybe they should be doing something that doesn't involve leading people. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's go and do something else. You know.
And I think sometimes it starts with warmth for ourselves, and because we don't have that as a practice, how can we have it for other people? Right. And so we've been so trained to and told what is going to make us whole, and steering us away from community and not just being warm towards each other, but towards ourselves, which is, I think, part of community that we don't even know how to do it anymore, I think.
Yeah. And that whole thing about like God told you that work sucks. Yeah. I mean, that's part of it too. People think that they're here to suffer, right? So it's like that first you've got to learn like how to take care of yourself. That's a whole other, I don't know. I'm figuring it out. I like I said, I cry in the bathtub. That's what I do.
Yeah.
It feels good. I ate some Reese's Pieces in the bath yesterday. It was a good time. Had some pretzels, a ginger ale, some Reese's Pieces, breakfast of champions. Yeah. So it's like, it starts with like realizing that you aren't here to suffer and you aren't here to produce. And if the leader can understand that, then they're going to have the warmth that they need to bring that to their team.
Yes. So my last question to tie it in a nice little neat bow is, what do you envision the future of work looking like? Or what do you think it can look like?
I'm going to give you the dystopian answer here, Wendy, because I am writing a book. I'm writing a book about you know, brand culture and what it's doing to us. There was a recent interview with, like, people are talking a lot about Web3. There was a recent interview with like the head of Squarespace, and like, if we're going to say like, where are capitalists taking us? They're taking us actually into a time where everyone is a free agent. Their vision, and I mean, and this is where the economy really is going, is that workplaces will be more fragmented. The age of like the corporate conglomerate with thousands and thousands of employees, I think that is actually coming to an end. We're going to see less and less of that, and more of workplace situations where people are essentially like freelancers working with multiple brands. Do I think that that's great? No, I don't. There's some good things to that. There are positive elements to everyone owning their own work and productivity. But there's also some really scary negative pieces of that as well, because what it means is like the big corporations can profit off of labor, but not treat a worker like an employee, meaning they don't have to do benefits. They can like delegate all of the costs of doing business back to the worker. That's the scary thing. But I think we need to be aware that this is where our economy is moving. We're moving into a time of more free agents, for better or worse. And so as we, like, for the compassionate reformers, they need to be thinking about that in terms of the type of legislation they're proposing. How do we protect? How do we make sure that like that people who are essentially, you know, individual contractors are protected in a way? How do we create universal healthcare for people? Like, let's give our people healthcare so they don't have to get it through their freaking jobs, stuff like that. So it's a scary answer, but also I think that we need to be like, let's just keep our eye on reality here. I also think that within that, there is an opportunity for people to create the type of work-life dynamic that corporate America doesn't allow us to have, right? That it's all about like, fitting your life into the nooks and crannies of when you're not working. That will shift as this new kind of economy of the free agent starts to become more and more of our reality. So yeah.
Yeah. Lots to think about. I can't wait to rewatch this back and take notes. So yes, get my finger out. I'll be like, yeah. So before we go, I can't not bring up Gift University, because people see my gifts and they're like, can you teach me how to do that? And I'm like, no, but RKA can. Here's my affiliate link, bitch. So, nobody's had time to that. but RKA did, and here it is. So tell us where people can find that and learn to make amazing gifts. And by the way, I'm cozying up to 1 billion views. I'm at like 800.
Oh my God, the Billionaires Club. I got to start my own comma club, my own gift for anybody, my own gift comma club. Because how many commas are in 1 billion? 3? I don't know. Anyway, listen, there's no time for that. We're artists, not mathematicians. You can go to giftuniversity.com to learn how to make your own gifts. I'm at 2.2 billion by now. So I'm 1 billion. I got billions plural in your face, Elon. I did it all without any loans. It was all me, baby. I'm a self-made gift billionaire, and that's the damn truth. So giftuniversity.com if you want to learn how to make your own gifts. It's a fun time.
I love that. Thank you so much for joining us today. Tell the party people where else they can find you on the interweb.
Anywhere internets are sold, Wendy. You just Rachael Kay Albers. I'm there. Rachael Kay Albers. RACHAEL. I've got a scarlet A in there. Just Google me, and you'll find me at your trusted internet provider of choice.
Yes, and definitely subscribe to RKA's newsletter where she does more digging deep into a lot of the kinds of things we've been talking about today. And my closing thoughts for today are vote in your local elections.
Yes.
Please. This is why they want us to think that local elections don't matter. They do. Exercise your vote to right. Your right to vote.
Don't be right.
That's not, I feel like Bob Barker at the end of The Price is Right, where he says, don't forget to spay and neuter your animal. Don't forget to vote in your local elections, y'all. That's my closing tagline. Thank you, RKA. We'll see you next time. More work culture revolution to come with guests. Stay tuned here. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, comment, blah, blah, blah. You know the deal. Bye for now. Woo!